you'll have to forgive the improvisational nature of this, but so I'm joined by my very good friend and colleague Summer Moraes, who's going to be assisting me, as we haven't got the anticipated visual projector. So you're used to guiding me and keeping me under tight control and stopping me waffling and.
This is quite fun. I actually missed it, Stephen, when I'm like re-listening. I'm like, I really missed it when we did it. And this is quite random, but when you do put me on the spot like this last minute, it really does kind of cause me a nervous breakdown, but also it makes me kind of not care what other people think, so it's like rejection therapy or something. So let's just hope for the best, everybody.
We will hope for the best. So it's probably you'll have to excuse me if there are images on the laptop of this presentation I've created, but I won't be able to tell you the page numbers or anything, and I'm going to allow because time is limited, Summer to go to choose some of her favourite images and things that she knows that I can talk at length and authoritatively about, rather than maybe improvise and maybe talk bollocks about. But anyway,
that's what we do. Stephen, so first of all, how are you feeling about it? Because I haven't seen you. Well, I've seen you recently, but not to talk about the book.
No.
How are you feeling about it? And talk a bit about the book. How did it come about? Why elements?
How am I feeling about the book, or things in general?
There
are two different answers.
Why not?
Not things in general. No, we best not to go there.
The pressure wall.
But in terms of the book, I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. And as for why elements and why this particular subject, Elements is a culmination of a trilogy of books, which all of which have been the same format, which is designed as a kind of visual map of creation, a sort of which is a pretty ambitious and hubristic thing to attempt. This is the final volume. The first volume was The Cosmic Dance, which looked at all things celestial and kind of it was designed as a kind of journey between the. I try and avoid the word journey because it's so loaded now and it's sort of used in every kind of advertising or cheesy TV thing. As a voyage between the microcosm and the macrocosm. And then its sequel, the second book, was called Underworlds, which is looking at the things that underpin the universe, whether it be the physical universe or whether it be the metaphysical universe or the psychological universe. So it was a look at the underpinnings of everything. And the ideal, trying to think of the perfect way to tie the trilogy together, because it was originally we decided we wanted to create a trilogy at the beginning, was what ties everything together, and the thing that ties everything together are the elements. The elements are basically they are the stuff of the universe. They are the thing that holds everything together. They're the thing that holds everything in balance. And it's a system of thought and a system of classification that is common to all cultures. They may vary, but it was sort of about probably the theory of the elements was one of the early humans, a way of explaining the chaos of the universe. And because we live in a chaotic universe and getting more chaotic by the day, the elements. Looking at elemental forces seemed to be a way of confronting the chaos of the contemporary world, as well as the world throughout the entire span of human history, and as a way of looking at reunifying everything and a way of finding some kind of balance.
Yeah, it blows my mind, Stephen, how much you must be learning doing all your books. I mean, I've got to say, this is also really random, but speaking to you, you do make me want to go to so many art exhibitions and read so many books and watch so many films. I'm trying to watch a film a day, just to try and keep up with your vast knowledge. I guess it's a silly question, but are you feeling super inspired? I mean, you're going through so many different types of work.
Yes, I am, and I'm driven. I'm completely driven by this. There is a kind of I am extremely ambitious and driven in what I'm attempting to do, and I'm not there. I'm nowhere near. My great work, is nowhere near completed yet.
Do you have sort of a visual destination, or like you do?
Yeah.
Can you share it with us?
No.
Okay. Your whole purpose of life.
No. It says there was an ultimate aim. There were books I want to create in the future, and then the next book that I'm creating with Thames and Hudson, which will be published towards the end of next year. So there's a bit of a gap. Because it's very, very ambitious. It's the next stage of that, and it kind of follows on from this trilogy. It's a standalone book, which would be it's a vision of the natural world, and with the title, it's going to be called Ark. And so I've envisaged it as a kind of Noah's Ark in book form. If the planet were to be destroyed, if we were to be informed that there was a comet about to hit the Earth in 2 months' time, and we had the means to evacuate and migrate to another planet and terraform that planet, preferably not in the company of Elon Musk and his cohorts. What would we take?
Yeah.
So what is worth saving? What is completely precious?
Can I ask you then, put you on the spot, what is complete, what do we want to take away with us after we leave this planet?
Well, so far I've bombarded my long-suffering editors at Thames and Hudson with something like 4,000 images, I think, so far. It ranges everything from sort of like microorganisms up to the entire animal plant kingdom, the ultimate vision of the natural world, both plant life, animal life, insect life, bird life, everything. And then after that, I have other ideas I want to do.
Even that, how your perspective with your books, it's always a hopeful one. It's always like, despite us talking about sometimes the world is so hard or whatever, it's looking a bit grim, you still have that hopeful perspective of it's not all rubbish.
I do, although it's very easy to succumb to despair and very easy to succumb to nihilism, and we're seeing the consequences of that, and we're reaping the whirlwind of that at the moment. I mean, it's just the places have been fired. The politics everywhere, and the current situation is actually designed to make one despair and probably give up the ghost. But I do think that I do think there is always hope, without being Pollyanna-ish or being unnecessarily sentimental or about it. I do think that as long as human connections remain, and we can make connections, and we can make small differences, which then turn into large differences by connections initially on a personal level, and then on a local level, and what I do have always tried to do with my, and what I see, if I were to be put on the spot and asked what it is I think I'm actually doing with these books, and some with other things that I've done, like I'm going to be doing some sort of artwork things and some video type art installation work. Sort of in the next year or so, and collaborating with some musicians and things, which is really exciting. It is a vision of the interconnectedness of all things, and the things that people have in common. So with all my books, I try and include work from as many different cultures, as many different traditions, religions, as many different eras as possible, and I want it to show the things that are not in the most banal and prosaic ways of this looks like that, or these people may have worshipped something that looks like the other group of people thousands of miles away and thousands of years later maybe, but to have something more profound than that. There is a profound connection between the archetypal imagery and archetypal symbols. So, and that is what I try. And I think that is where the hope comes in the books. I create.
Oh, do you know what? Also being a bit soppy because I was kind of thinking, I was like, what would I take with me, you know, I'm getting well morbid, but you know, when life comes to an end, and I was like, I think it would be art and my books. I know it's so random, but it just really made me think, Stephen. How do you feel about that?
About taking art and books?
Yeah, do you not think that's like one of the best things of this
well,
planet?
I think so, but I think that yes, obviously, but I think that I don't know. I think the things you need to, if you go into a battle, if you need to survive, if you need to get out off the planet, then the things need to be within you. And so I look, I do look at my when I'm curating and putting images together, and particularly working out sequences of things in books, and even online, even if it's like Instagram or Facebook, which people maybe don't perceive that. To me, I enter a kind of, and it may seem ridiculous to say that sort of posting, I don't know, 20 images on Facebook is entering a kind of trance-like state of sort of suspended or sort of negative capability. But I do that, and I try, and I think I am open to. I feel like I channel things at times, and I do, and it is, to me, sometimes it does feel like, particularly with putting books together, it does feel like casting a spell.
Yeah.
And it feels sometimes akin to when I'm creating the patterns, that it's like, you know, a tarot pattern, whatever. So and I would deliberate and spend forever working out the juxtaposition of images and the correspondences and the affinities between different images.
I love when you say that. I love it, because even it's not talked about a lot. When I talk to different writers, a lot of them, 80% of them, say they feel like they're channeling something, and it's just not talked about enough, or it's kind of, you roll your eyes and you're like, yeah, right. But it happens. It does take over, and sometimes to the detriment of physical and mental health. It's emotional health, because I'm exhausted, because I've become completely driven to do those things. I should explain that Summer presents a wonderful podcast for Worms magazine, and which is your podcast is mainly interviewing some very, very interesting and some incredibly distinguished authors. So please check. Oh, thank you for the plug, Stephen. But it's also like just that notion of like how many things we disregard as wacky or whatever, but so many of the great artists that we look up to, they do truly believe that they're channeling something. And also, Stephen, something else, a lot of them are similar to you in that they go through, they go through a very dark time, because you started this, like 2010?
2010, yes.
Yeah, so before that, you had many years of trying to figure out what you were trying to do, or like dark times.
Yes.
Even that's
and yes, I suppose there's a lot of false starts and sort of cul-de-sacs and a lot of wayward behaviour, and this is it, and I think that this has been my redemption from that, and sort of like my life. It sounds cheesy and it sounds sentimental to say that it's sort of like I feel like sort of towards quite a late stage of my life, I found a kind of vocation, and people nobody got it for a while. Now I could see that with the early years of social media, when I first joined Facebook, which I don't think Instagram was around then. I became very soon after signing up to it, I became quite upset. I thought it was a new way of communicating, and there was a genuine, and it's been completely polluted now, completely sullied, but there was a point where it felt like something utopian, and it felt like a new media. It felt like a way of conveying information and conveying messages, conveying truths about things in a way that hadn't been done before, in a kind of way that was like an extension of kind of a collage type idea. And I think that sometimes what I attempt to do is akin to maybe collage art. And that's so that those are the artists I feel most kinship to. If I'm doing something, if people I'm absolutely hopeless at any kind of actual art, fine art. I can't draw or paint for toffee. I just can't do it, and it's been a source of frustration ever since I was very young. But I think I have a gift for anything. It's a gift for pattern making and a gift for seeing those things. And
I love how you said it's a vocation.
Yeah, and it's manifested itself in other ways in my earlier life. I did music for quite long. I was a musician, professional musician for a while, and I was there were other things which I'm slightly embarrassed about talking about, so I'm not going to. But which involve kind of pattern making. But when I did music, it was interesting when I was a technically hopeless musician, but I seemed to have an aptitude and an instinctive way of I could arrange things, and I knew how to produce things, even though I had very little actual technical skills. I was very good at working out what went together, even though I could barely read music or barely play. That came very naturally to me, to the chagrin of lots of very highly paid producers and engineers.
You have had a wacky life. All those wacky moments, they've informed. They informed the work now, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah? Oh, yes, they do.
Because you learn so much in so many different areas.
Yes, definitely. And I think because I don't think I have any illusions about things. I think that I am without illusion.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't think I have any. I'm hopeful about things naturally, but but I don't. I think I see through things, and I think that there's a sense of. I am agitated in lots of ways. There's so much I want to do, and there's a lot that frustrates me about the state of the world and the way things are, and the ways that things should be different. But I'm a kind of. There's a kind of peace with myself and a sort of quietism that's I think is a culmination of all that stuff. Even though there may be sort of turmoil inside, and think, well, I've got to get this done, and I've got this deadline, and I've got
a peace within yourself. Oh, I want that. Bloody hell.
I'm sure it will come at some point.
I hope so. Even, this is really soppy, but even I spent so many years, having nervous breakdowns and like waitressing even. And I'd be like, what has my life come to? And now, when I talk to writers, I'm like, you know what? I'm so used to talking to people, because waitressing is like, it's people watching. In a way, I'm like, oh, even that informed what I'm doing now. Even when I felt so down about it.
Of course it does. Yeah, of course it does.
Life, innit?
Well, we haven't really talked about the...
Let's get on to the images.
Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on the otherwise
we do get carried away.
We have got carried away there, but
right. Okay, wait a sec. Okay.
Go on then. You.
Okay. This is actually like quite a lot of pressure to try and. I need to find them. Okay. Let me go on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the book is structured, obviously, as around the 5 elements. So the 5 chapters are earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, water, air, fire, ether. Yeah. And so with an introductory chapter about the elements in general, which looks at sort of the way that elements have been depicted in different cultures and throughout the centuries, including a lot of alchemical texts and things. And this is one of my favourite images in the entire book. It's an extraordinary book. This is a mid 20th century. This is basically a tapestry.
Right, I'm trying. It's like a big...
It's an enormous tapestry by the English artist John Craxton. It is a depiction of the... It's one of my favourite sort of post-19th century visions of the elements. This is a tapestry that hangs in the library of the University of Stirling, although there are preparatory paintings of it. I think one of the paintings is owned by Tate Britain, but it's never on display there. A lot of their good stuff is in storage, and I love this. This is an example of kind of 20th century English art at its most visionary. But sort of take in the great tradition of Blake, Palmer, etc.
From the lake.
So these are all from. There are quite a few illustrations from alchemical texts, primarily sort of 17th and 18th century texts. That one is from an alchemical text, which I think is 17th century by, like most of these things, by a pseudonymous author called Hermes. A lot of them are called Hermes, and this is in the. There are two images from this book in the. From this text in the book, and which is in the Rylands Library at the University of Manchester. And this is quite extraordinary. I love what I like about it is the character of this is a depiction of the three principles of Paracelsus as the tria prima, which was which were sulfur, mercury, and salt. Now these were considered to be. Paracelsus had this theory of medicine that sort of expanded on the traditional idea of the four humours, and added to that by saying that these three basic elements were the key to good health and balanced health, both physical and mental, and how you could any kind of illness could be cured by combining the poison or the bile or whatever that created the illness with one of these three elements: sulfur, mercury, and salt. Now this had some very devastating consequences. And then I think you can see what.
How long did they believe this theory?
For quite a while. So the most dangerous and lethal result of this was that he claimed that the only efficacious cure for syphilis was mercury, and you can imagine what happened. So that people were treated with mercury for syphilis for some time, with obviously horrendous results. But what I love about this is it's just three they represent sulfur, but I love the expressions of this one here. I don't think it's sulfur, which looks so blasé, and they're like people in a home county's hot tub at a kind of swingers party, but they represent a sort of ghastly sort of swingers party in Watford or something. So they are the three elements. But not that I have any knowledge.
How do you know this?
No, I don't know.
That one?
No, yeah, the next one. This is. I love this. This is very difficult. This is a work by the contemporary artist who was born in Iran. Now lives and works in New York. A guy called Ali Banisadr, whose work does not translate to the page or particularly photographs. His work is incredibly full of depth, and he uses images from the Western alchemical tradition, but mixed with kind of Islamic imagery. But a lot of the images drawn from alchemy, and his paintings, some of them are huge and they're multi-layered and incredibly vast and immersive. And this is one of his smaller paintings, and it's like a contemporary vision of the rebis. Now the rebis was the ultimate was what was considered to be the ultimate goal of the alchemical process. After you've undergone purging and purification, the rebis was what you would become. You'd be transformed into this being, which was hermaphroditic. So it was like all contradictions and all opposites were reconciled in this one being. It was the ultimate goal of alchemy, was to become this being. So it synthesizes the male and female principle, light and darkness, the spiritual and the physical, all combined into this one. That was the ultimate aim of alchemy. And this is I love the fact that there are lots of visions of this that are probably familiar to people here in a lot of the more famous alchemical texts, but I like this kind of 21st century iteration of that.
So is that what enlightenment looks like?
You would be enlightened.
That's what it looks like.
Enlightenment, and everything is resolved. The resolution of everything. You are enlightened and you have become. All contradictions have been resolved.
Cool. Should we go this one? Are we going too slow, or like should I go quite far ahead?
You can get. Let's see how far. Let's see.
Because I want to get to Aether because it's my favourite.
All right. You may have to fast forward.
Okay. Okay. So now we're on to water. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. This.
Well, this is another contemporary image. Now, I put this in this presentation because one of the concerns of the book is, and in all my books is an engagement with the world, engagement with the world as it is in current events, and particularly the plight of the world. This is. So this image actually addresses the contemporary, the current crisis and global warming and the horrific dangers that we face. This is by a British photographer called Nick Brandt, who spends most of his time travelling the world and doing. You probably, I guarantee you will have seen his images, particularly of endangered animals. He's had several books published of his work, which are quite extraordinary. And then he is engaged completely with looking at the loss of habitat, about the threatened mass extinction of things, and latterly about global warming and issues related to the rising of the tides. And this is from an ongoing series that he's been doing. This was this ongoing series called Fall Rise, which looks at the likely consequences of even the small rise in the levels of the ocean, and the devastating consequences. And this image was taken in one of the islands of Fiji, which is a whole series of them, and it's and they're all taken underwater. Take a really complex way of stage the photographs. Yeah. And the people. These are all the people that he depicts. They're all people within 10 years. Their home will have gone. They'll be destroyed. And this obviously for people coastal areas worldwide. This is an imminent danger, and so he uses this is particularly poignant because this is the father and son, and the son. This is the first time that when this was staged. This is the first time that they'd been united for several years, because the son had been forced, because of the traditional ways of making a living, fishing and things, is destroyed. The coral reef is, a lot of the photographs you'll see that the coral reef is completely bleached, it's dead already. So the son has had to go to Australia to work elsewhere, and this is the first time they've been reunited. So I think this is beautifully poignant. The whole series is beautiful, and there are images there. So there's an image there.
That's what I saw, because there's a video on YouTube of it as well.
Yeah, that's him. That's the photographer there. That's Nick Brandt there filming it. So some of them they have to hold their breath underwater for quite a long time to take the.
Oh, actually, I mean, I did watch the video, but for them, how long do they have to take? Like, it must be quite a while.
It's quite a while. Yeah, several minutes. Yeah. Some of the ones with children, I think it's quite shallow water, so they're not basically threatening to drown.
Yeah. This is one I kind of thought, okay, then we'll move on. It's like with a dining.
Yeah, with the dining. I think that's also there's a sense of absence there, because I think her husband and the father of her children, he's also had to go. I think in that case to America.
Yeah.
To actually earn a living. Find a living.
Can we talk this one? I love this one. It's funny. It's funny. I hope.
Is it?
It's not funny. It's
No, I love this photograph. No, I love this. This is possibly one of the most simplest, most images in the book. But this is, according to all authority, anything I can find, any reference sources I can find, this is the earliest photograph of a surfer that's ever been. And this guy, well, basically, he and I can't remember his name without looking in the book. He basically invented created the surfing's been going on in not just in Hawaii and Pacific, but for hundreds of years. But he designed a modern surfboard. He was the first person, and he was like a real celebrity. And he was like a local legend. And
it's made of wood. Is it made of wood?
Made of wood, yeah. So he's like the first. First one. And no, can you have the drum? Yeah, back a bit.
Yeah.
No, this is one of my absolute favourite images in the book. It's a hide drum from the mid 19th century, I think around 1860 to 1880. That's by a guy called a Native American named George Beaver, who's a member of the Pawnee tribe. Which I think Pawnee is slightly offensive, and I can't remember the actual name. So I hope I'll be forgiven for using that. And this is a sort of drum used in ritual, which depicts the thunderbird. And as a depiction of the elements of elemental rage, of the elemental forces. This is quite remarkable. So the thunderbird is descending from the heavens, and you can see the lightning depicted here, and these are all swallows that are scattering and terrified by the storm, and then the one a Native American there witnessing and sort of trying to appease the forces, ritual, presumably with a drum like this. And I love, absolutely, this isn't in the book because just space, but I love showing this at the same time because this is the reverse of the drum. And it's a beautiful, like, heavenly map of the cosmos. Really simple, stylized map of the cosmos, which it's extraordinarily beautiful object.
Yeah. Let me know if you any. Oh, okay. So now we're on to fire. Yeah.
Moving swiftly on through fire. Yeah.
Okay. Fire. This one.
There's not much to say about this other than it's a 16th century woodcut. This dates from the kind of the height of the witch craze, the persecution of witches in Europe in the 16th century, and this is from a Swiss chapbook, and it depicts the devil abducting a witch and taking her off to hell. And so this is completely sensationalist thing. It would have been distributed as a fairly cheap thing, as a propaganda tool to use against witches, against women. So we all know the horrendous history of witchcraft. That is quite remarkable, powerful piece of propaganda. Horrendous, really.
Mad that they'd think that's actually real, with like the abducting the devil or something. Is it the devil?
She's being abducted.
Yeah. She's being abducted. Damn. Let me know if.
Well, we can stop on that quickly. No, the previous one. No.
A tenor.
Yeah, the Turner. I just put this because I think this is something. This is a goal for, or aim for, a wish for 2025. This is one of Turner's paintings of the burning of the House of Commons, and it's something that might be wishful thinking. Turner painted quite. I think it's 1834, 1836. He rushed to the scene. He made dozens of sketches of the house. He did the same when the Tower of London, the Arsenal at the Tower of London was on fire. So there were quite a few paintings by Turner of almost gleefully documenting the destruction of the original House of Commons, or the previous House of Commons. And this is possibly my favourite, and which happens to be in Cleveland rather than some of the others are in Tate Britain. Yeah. It's just something, sort of something we can all devoutly, if we might be able to manifest such a, obviously when it's empty, not.
Yeah. Also, that fact, I think I told you, Stephen, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but he tied himself to a mast of a ship, right?
Yes, to
paint a storm.
To paint Ulysses, yes. Just for, to see what it, because he was painting Ulysses, and the siren sort of instructing his crew to tie him to the mast so he would resist the siren song. So he wanted to know how that felt, so he could translate that into paint as a painting. So.
I love that. Okay. Let me know.
Yeah, these are now. We've on to very swiftly onto
Ether.
I do love that previous one, which is this is a map of this is basically a schematic map of whirlwinds and the sort of the animating and turbulent forces of nature. And this 18th century French diagram, I think it's just wonderful. So it's showing, it's almost like a depiction of the Earth's magnetic field or whatever, but it's supposed to, it's, the title of this is just extraordinary, very long, but it is all about whirlwinds and tornadoes and how they create how they create and how they recreate the world again and again.
Also, can we talk about what Aether actually is? Because I didn't know until I read your book and looked it up. So it's like, it's the spirit world, right?
It's a spirit that it's a glue that holds everything together. And it is also, it's the yeah. So it's both the animating substance of the universe, and it's basically the spirit of everything.
Yeah. Do we go on to that?
Yeah, and go on to that. That's
I love this one.
Yeah, that's quite familiar. That's from Annie Besant's book on her thought forms, which I don't know. A lot of you probably are familiar with her as sort of early 20th century spiritualist and also social reformer as well. But she created this book and with I can't remember his first name, but C.W. Ledbetter, I think was his name, which showed how I think it's actually a latter-day facsimile of this available, where thought, so the physical nature of thoughts become how they manifest themselves. And this is possibly my favourite image from the book, which represents the music of Charles Gounod, who's probably best known for his opera of Faust. So this is the music and the thoughts behind the music manifesting themselves in beautiful patterns. It's sort of synesthetic.
They would see that
vision.
They would see that, Stephen.
Yes.
Like people see auras, they would see thoughts.
Yeah, people can see. Yeah, thought forms become material.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Georgiana. Sorry, I'll just have a sip of it.
I love these. This section's my favourite with the artists
with
that
the
believe
artists
in the
that are channeling.
Channeling.
This is a work by the Victorian, the English artist Georgiana Houghton, who was before she changed direction. She was quite a well-off, affluent background, and she was possibly the most successful woman artist in Victorian Britain up to about 1850, which was quite a unique position, because she was considered to be the equal, if not the superior, to the great portrait artists of her time. She made a lot of money painting portraits of the great and the good of Victorian London and Victorian society, which was a very privileged position, because women were not generally allowed to, or it was difficult for women to make a living in art, but partly because they were not allowed to attend art school. They certainly weren't allowed to attend the Royal Academy, because it was feared that if they were exposed to naked human form, they would succumb to a fit of the vapours or become completely degenerate and go mad.
When did it change? What year did it change?
Not until it changed at the end of the 19th century, but even so, it was still difficult for women to. So most of the other women, her contemporary women artists, working at the same time as Georgiana, were well known, and are well known to us now as they were allowed to do acceptable things like botanical illustrations, in particular flower illustrations, scientific illustrations. That was considered seemly for a woman to do. But Georgiana Houghton was such a talented artist and a forceful personality that she was considered. There were people, there were reports of where she was considered the greatest of the Victorian portraits, above people that are now possibly slightly forgotten, other than for experts in art, people like Augustus Egg and Miles Burkitt Foster, who were incredibly well paid, incredibly famous artists at the time. And at some point around 1850, Georgiana Houghton suddenly started receiving visions, receiving messages from the spirit world. And there were various guides, and not just one, as in some of the artists they tend to have, like Madge Gill, who's also in the book, tend to have just one guide.
Yeah.
She would receive messages from a multitude of guides, including some very famous Renaissance master artists, in particular Titian and Correggio and Giorgione, and they would tell her she had a mission, and she had to fulfill. She was to bring the voice of God and visions of God and make them manifest in the modern world. And so she started creating these extraordinarily vibrant and complex abstract patterns, and she devoted an entire time to creating these. After she'd amassed quite a body of work of this type, people can say, well, she sort of seemed to disappear. What's happened to her? She's working on new stuff. And she paid, out of her own money, she hired the gallery, which was the Fine Art Society in Bond Street, which is still sort of there, although it's much smaller than it was in high Victorian times, to display these works. Invited, so this would have been the most prestigious private view opening, and all the great and the good, not just the art world, but sort of notables of society and things would turn up for this. This is the great Georgiana Houghton, this is her new work. To be confronted by images like this, which were completely alien to people, the obvious reaction was, well, she's lost her mind.
Yeah.
What is this? This is some kind of, and she was. There were like cartoons in Punch and things like that, vilifying and abusing her. But thankfully, Georgiana Houghton was pretty tough and wasn't deterred. She thought that she knew, she was convinced that what she was doing was. It was a mission from God and a mission from the beyond, and so she continued to do this. And basically thought, well, if people are not ready yet to receive this, then that's their loss, and they will be recognised in the future. And she continued to do it. She wasn't deterred. She continued to create these works.
And it reminds me of Hilma af Klint, who had an exhibition recently.
Yes.
And what's the story, Stephen? When she died, Hilma af Klint, she wouldn't.
I was going to say about this.
Have we got Hilma?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Georgiana had and her work when she died, it ended up being because she was a medium as well, and a very successful medium who people really revered and thought had a really true gift and a great gift. So when she died, her work was left to the somehow ended up at the Victorian Spiritualist Union in Melbourne, who own her work. And so, thanks to some wonderful scholars, people like Jennifer Higgy, who I know you've interviewed and things, her work was rediscovered. It was basically forgotten. It was in the kind of archives of the Spiritualist Union, Spiritualist Church. And then a few years ago, in the last 20 years, started to be rediscovered. And now her reputation, some people sort of say, well, this is amazing. This is like abstract art or post-impressionist or expressionist art. This is kind of like Kandinsky or Kupka 50 years beforehand. But that's not really. I mean, it looks like 20th century abstract art, but that's not what she was doing. She wouldn't recognise that. So. And I love the way she's been now revered, because the work
Yeah.
is just quite is remarkable.
So many of those artists now are having their moment.
Well, Hilma af Klint,
And
definitely.
Eiffel. You know Eiffel?
It's Ellcock,
That's it. Eiffel.
yeah.
Who's also having a...
She's in it. Oh, yeah, there is a.
Oh, yeah.
She's in the book, but yeah.
Is this Hilma?
No, that's Emma Kuntz, another visionary artist, this Swiss visionary artist and healer.
Do you want to?
I can quickly. I think. How are we doing? Do we need to stop? It is like 6 o'clock almost. So.
Should we do one last one to finish?
Shall I do this rather than Hilma?
Yeah.
And I won't tell you about Hilma af Klint's. Basically, her legacy and her estate is basically controlled by Swedish gangsters, especially like the Cray twins or something. Anyway, we won't go into that. I was told that by.
And could we just say, because I need to remember it, when she died, she wouldn't let people see her work.
They weren't supposed to see her work
because it was too far ahead of her time,
40
right?
years, 40, I think. 40 years after.
Yeah, that's
her
only
death,
when you
yeah.
could see her work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we have to wrap things up, sadly. But I'm gonna mention this because I think I love these. These are extraordinary.
Yeah.
What this is an X-ray that's been turned into a record. So this is in post Second World War Soviet Russia. There was no vinyl couldn't be had. It was impossible to get the material for vinyl because of the Cold War. But there was a huge appetite for Western music still. In particular jazz, and in particular quite experimental jazz, things like bebop, things like Charlie Parker, and it was just impossible. So pre-Second World War, American records and British records, European records found their way into, so it was very difficult to get into, and then they would bootleg them and create copies of them at the vinyl. Somebody discovered by retrofit that X-rays could be if you had a certain cutting machine, you could actually turn them into records, and they would play. And so
It just looks so cool.
So what they did was they set up these underground pressing plants and cutting rooms where they would have arrangements with hospitals to all their discarded X-rays. And sometimes there were certain, some of it was controlled by gangsters and stuff, but they would when they discard X-rays, they would go and pick them up and turn them into records.
Yeah.
And they just but they still maintain the X-ray on, and they play. I know the guys, the best, Stephen Coates, who wrote a book about this, who has a collection of these you could buy a few years ago for absolutely nothing, and they're still and it sounds good.
Wow, yeah.
It sounds great, and so. This lasted until like the mid '60s when they began to get supplies of vinyl again. But they were extraordinary. So there are things like early Beatles and Rolling Stones records, which are on old X-rays and things, and they're just remarkable. And the slang term for them, the nickname for them was bone music. So I love the sort of the ethereal nature that they are, I think this is Charlie Parker, but I might be wrong.
Wow.
So, and I love the resourcefulness that someone to create this, and there's this thriving scene of people exchanging X-rays with sort of Carl Perkins and Elvis Presley songs. It's just great.
Yeah, so cool.
I think they're closing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.